All right. Thank you, Randy. Welcome, everyone. This is a Netgear webinar. We have a great honor today because we are joined by Paul Massaro from Shure. This is a webinar about the Shure Microflex products that we are now supporting in the NETGEAR AV line. And of course, we want to explain to you why we did all this and how you are going to profit from this partnership. And of course, we want to get our hands dirty. Approximately 20 minutes in the webinar, we are going to connect to all these devices and to the switch, and we are going to configure them together. So please be patient for that. Maybe, Paul, I should stop right there and say hello to you and thank you for joining Netgear. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Laurent. Thanks for having me here. I'm Paul Massaro. I am a global product manager at Shure, and I look over the MXA ecosystem, which is our conference microphones and processors. And yeah, it's been a pleasure working with Netgear on this. It's great to have some experts in networking in our corner to help our customers. So appreciate you having me.
Oh, thank you, Paul. And again, thanks for being here. All right, so as I was saying, we are going to introduce this technology, the latest and greatest from Shure and Netgear, and we are going to demo it. In fact, it's more than a demo. We really want to configure it and explain all the benefits of these new profiles in our switches. But a little bit of logistic first. First of all, I need to say that I'm missing our great host, John Hankel. He's actually traveling to Las Vegas for a show today. That's the reason why he's not introducing this webinar. But John, I got you covered. So logistic, you do have some two chat and questions buttons in this interface. So please, during the webinar, during the presentation, during the demo, ask all the questions you have, because if we can, we will have Randy and Keith that are our SCs on the chat and the question box, answering them live to you, but also some of them might be brought to our attention, and we could maybe this way collaborate all together and discuss those questions together. All right? So without further ado, welcome to this webinar, Understanding the New Profiles for Shure Microflex Ecosystem Products in the Netgear AV Line Switchers. So I'm going to start before letting Paul introduce the Shure products and this Microflex product line to you. I'm always starting with this small slide because this is how everything has started almost 10 years ago for us at Netgear, when we first discovered that your AV products, audio, video, and since then control, lighting, everything, they are transitioning away from the previous circuit-based or analog digital solutions to IP, packet-based multicast IP distribution. And of course, we at Netgear, we were an IT networking vendor before. We are still an IT networking vendor. But we discovered that transporting AV over IP was really difficult. So we started to, understand that better. And in this diagram, it's a video distribution with some encoders and decoders. But for audio, that's the same thing. You have sources and destinations, microphones and speakers. The fabric is becoming the network, right? So it is really important to understand that in order to have a good AV over IP transition with a reliable AV distribution, it's now critical to have a AV capable Ethernet switch or a AV capable Ethernet network to transport those AV streams, because if the switch is not doing good, then that's the whole AV experience that can be ruined. So let me get to the point. Of course, at Netgear, we do switches for a long time, But when we studied, we discovered, I told you how difficult it was. So what we did, one by one, we went to Shure and we went to many other AV manufacturers, and we studied the collaboration. It's actually a mutual certification process, because not only we had to accommodate a lot of different types of endpoints, but vice versa. Sometimes the AV manufacturers had to, tweak their solutions in order to get to a perfect certification in between the Netgear switch platforms and those AV endpoints. And we did that very early, many years ago. Over time, we now have a whole lot of AV manufacturers, and one of our preferred partners, Shure, is present today during this webinar. But we discovered that it was not enough, because of course all that must be configured, and the configuration is really complex with many quality of service, multicast, PTP, many things need to be configured in those IT switches. So we changed our way in terms of software. We try now to hide a little bit more those complex configurations, and the AV user interface in the Netgear AV line switchers present pre-configured canned configuration profile templates that you can easily apply. And of course, today we are going to show the two brand new Shure profiles that are available across our entire portfolio with the AV user interface. So, as I said, you need good switchers to do AV over IP. Netgear has a large portfolio spanning from unmanaged to plus to smart to fully managed platforms. I can tell you we tried them all, okay? As a director of product management, I really tried my best with many different types of switchers. But it turned out that only the M series, the fully managed platforms, are capable enough, because they have the chipset, they have the processors, the CPU, they have all the hardware plus the adequate software to effectively drive AV over IP without issue. So as soon as you will reach out to the Netgear Pro AV design team, you will always, very often, always almost see that we drive you through 3 different switch platforms ranging from 4250 for 1G applications with a good look in AV racks, because they have a AV compatible form factor, the ports on the back. Of course, you can reverse the switches if you want, but they actually are designed for AV customer-facing rack installations. The 4300s are a little bit higher end, a little bit more enterprise class, with redundant power supplies, with stacking and some more bells and whistles, but they are very good too. This is how we started at Netgear, all this software and certification process. So everything the 4250s can do, the 4300s will do it not better, but as the same way. And of course, if you have a large installation, maybe not with the Shure microphones and speakers, because that's audio, but if you add video over IP into a large infrastructure, rapidly you'll need, some 40 gig, 100 gig aggregation. So the 4500s are the network core switches that are also certified and validated, designed for AV. So everything we do, frankly, in the Netgear AV group is based on this M series. So I don't want to spend time today, that's not the point at all, on these switchers, but just so that you know, we have in each family, in each series, a number of options so that you can find the right port counts, the right PoE budget for PoE plus 30 watts or ultra PoE 802.3 BT, PoE plus plus up to the 90 watts per port. And don't forget the uplinks, because when we design networks, we need to take care of the bandwidth in between switches, depending on the number of streams for AVB, for audio, for video. So all these options are available across those series in order to drive nice networks. And yes, As you can see, we have now some desktops. I think I have a few things to tell you about the desktops and a brand new software. If you're not aware yet, that's a good time to go to netgear.com/engage, because the Engage controller is facilitating the installation of several switches at a time, right? So the user interface we have done for AV is great, switch by switch, but if you have a whole lot of switches to do, well, the Engage controller will help you discover them all, provision them all, and just provision your profiles across all your switches. So switches, we have seen that. Before we get to the Shure technology, I just want to remind you of three things. Why, at the end, Netgear became the most recommended switch platform. Well, it's because of this IGMP. So what's that? Well, IGMP is the protocol, right, for multicast at layer 2, despite it's a layer 3 protocol. This is what we use to transport multicast across an Ethernet network without the complex PIM multicast wiring techniques, okay? We all do that for audio, for video. But IGMP has been deficient big time from day one at the IEEE, because when you have multiple switches, one switch becomes the carrier and you are flooding your whole multicast to the carrier. And sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not definitely okay, because flooding can hurt, right? If you do not have enough bandwidth throughout the rest of your network. So Netgear at InfoComm 2019 went public with this invention. It actually took us 2 years to rewrite the entire IGMP protocol in our switches so that we are 100% backward compatible, of course, with the standard IGMP, because all AV endpoints are IGMP based. But the IGMP Plus is containing the multicast. You don't have to do anything. The multicast is contained on any switch, like if nobody else would be interested outside. And if you have a subscription, if you have a join from a device to a source on that switch, then and only then this stream will traverse the rest of the network throughout destination. Okay, so that's fundamental, because well, I can tell you IGMP Plus is solving AV over IP by containing the multicast without flooding your network. But Paul and a few other AV specialists told them back in the days, it's not sufficient, guys, because still, okay, the multicast is great, it's automatic, it's IGMP Plus, you do it very well, but you still need to do a few things in between switches, right, in order to drive several profiles, several VLANs at a time. The first thing you got to do is trunking. You need to set up those interconnect links with VLAN tags so that your VLANs can be, on one trunk all together from one switch to the other. It's cumbersome, and I fully agree. So we got rid of it, because now the switches, they talk with each other. And as soon as you will connect two of those switches, those M series, the auto trunk is kicking off, so that any profile, any VLAN that is on the left switch, and any profile, any VLAN that is on the right switch will traverse dynamically without you configuring anything. And well, we did not stop there. The lagging, the ether channel, right? The link aggregation, when you need more than one link, can be 1G for audio or several 10G links for video. If you need more links, you got to do link aggregation groups. And lagging is also complex, because you need to make sure that the config is the same left and right between switches. We eliminated that as well, because as soon as you connect more than one link in between the Netgear AV line switches, that is automatic too. So if you recap real quick, means that, well, the multicast is automatic. Multicast does not flood. It is totally independent on every switch, and you will only see the streams you want to see across your network. The trunking and the lagging are totally automatic too, so that you can get more time for Shure products, because your job is to configure the DSP, make sure that the AV experience is great, and switching should not be a concern. All right. So I hope you liked my nice story, because we claim that we have good hardware and good software and all that. But, well, frankly, it's not sufficient either, right? Because in every installation, and not only the big ones that you see here with massive networks and hundreds or thousands of endpoints, issues happen, right, Paul? It always happens because you have so much diverse landscape with so many different types of AV over IP endpoints, video, audio, control, touch panels, processors, controllers. It's difficult, and many other things that I probably ignore. You literally have hundreds and hundreds of different things to do in your AV job, and that's really difficult. So issues happen, but because we went to a one-to-one certification process with the vast majority of the AV manufacturers in this world, because we have learned all the lessons and fixed many issues and bugs and software issues in the past, we can have a dedicated team of AV/IT engineers around the world helping you fixing any possible issue with your AV installation. Of course, a switch-related issue most of the time, but it's very important because it means that if you go to Netgear with the AV line, with Shure for the Microflex audio and video conferencing solutions, and together into an installation, we will guide you before the project if you need any information, during the commissioning if you need any help for the configuration, and after the installation should any issue happens. And believe me, issues happen sometimes, but this team is fully capable of supporting all this for you. And usually we are very fast at troubleshooting and fixing the little glitches here and there that are, making your AV installation an issue. So I hope, Paul, I was not too long. I promised to you 10 minutes. It's actually already like 15. So that's pretty much the end. Everything, all those reasons, the hardware, the software, and the support, proavdesign@netgear.com. Please write it down, proavdesign@netgear.com. That's how you want to reach out to this team around the clock, across the world, everywhere, actually, capable of helping you in usually far less than 2 hours. And for all these reasons, the Netgear AV line has become the most recommended switch platform. So I'd have a last thing today. You probably noticed when I showed you the whole Netgear portfolio, a whole lot of switches were rack mount units, right? Good for racks. But when Paul has a job with plenty of conference rooms, or let's say a boardroom, you don't happen to have a rack in that boardroom, right? Because it got to be, smaller form factors that you can stitch somewhere under a table, against the wall, or maybe behind the screen. So we heard that during all these years. We only got rack mount units, and we managed over the summer this year to pack all the power of the 4250 models. We took the 12-port 1G model, and we took the 12-port 10G uplink model, and we packed all that power, all that componentry, CPU, memory, chipset, ports into a desktop form factor. And for the first time, you now have in this world a AV capable desktop switch for your conference rooms or any other types of mobile studios, where you need a small switch. So those desktop switches are great, very powerful. They run the exact same software as the others, and they are coming with an external power adapter. So 2 models, one for audio with 1G, 1 gig Ethernet uplinks, because it's good for Dante, for instance, and the other one with the 10G uplinks if you have a few more AV video encoders, in that conference room to carry. All right, thank you. And Paul, I think you're on.
Yeah, thanks, Laurent. Yeah, a lot of the stuff you talked about were a lot of the things that we encountered in the world with network audio. IMGP was, we had to make custom settings for customers all the time who would call in, because that was one of those things. And as we started watching Netgear, the AV line come up, we realized like you guys had the same passion for, solving these problems in this new, AV world where, other companies would just, ignore it all and just say, what do you mean? It's a switch. It does what it does. Not true. In this world, it's definitely different. The way audio and video transports, we were just, I feel like we lined up really well with our vision of what we want. And that at Shure, we have always seen our products as, as a single port device, and it's a converge of audio and control. And we realized like a lot of customers didn't quite have the expertise to do custom VLANs. So when you plug it into their switch, they kind of have to do some work. They have to know what they're doing. And it's a very manual process. And if you've got a ton of devices, it can take quite a while. And most of the AV integrators, weren't experts in that field. So they've been looking for a solution, and we were glad that we were able to work this out to really increase that faster integration with these Netgear Shure profiles. We've got one big advantage now is that, we've also tested everything, thoroughly, and that's where we uncovered bugs that neither one of us probably would have seen if we didn't go through this process. So it gives a lot of compatibility. It really increases that capability to just give confidence that it's going to work. So that's one of my favorite things is, we can really recommend this solution and this combination. We're able to open up new use cases for customers. Really was, you get some companies who have high security and they don't want anything crossing over networks, yet they still want to have control on their other networks, but not have any flooding of Dante audio. This solution now will separate the traffic very cleanly. And that's something that our customers have asking us to do for years. Can you just redesign all your products and put 2 ports on them? That wasn't really a good option for us. So this has been a great collaboration in that front, that we're able to give them a solution for that now. The support, as you heard, Netgear's got amazing support. Anytime we have problems internally, we can reach out to that same contact and we get such quick responses. It's been amazing. As I said, the simplicity of this solution, if you've ever had to create VLANs and actually separate by MAC addresses and things where there could be a lot of errors with users, it just saves you so much data entry and time and just knowing what you're doing. It opens up the capability for even lower level technicians to come in and click a few things. As long as they know what VLAN they're doing, the number, it's very easy to set up. And Laurent's going to show you that in a minute. We really like that you can get Netgear switches in the same AV channel. So where you can get a lot of Shure devices or switches or TVs, you're able to also get the switches from the M4250 line. So we really liked that global presence that they have. And we're continuing, even though we launched this, this summer, we are continuing more integration, and it's really come together nice. And we're going to introduce more new features coming out that really will save a lot of time for people.
Yes, we hope, despite we are a public company, so we cannot really disclose future product introductions, but I'm with you. We all agree that would be a great thing.
Yeah, and here's just an array of what our MXA ecosystem has. We've got our MXA 920 ceiling array mics. Those can shoot out 8 channels of lobes and really pick up people without having any visible microphones. The 910 is the previous model of that. The 920 has added features like automatic coverage within the room, so we'll deploy lobes automatically. The 710 is our linear array, which fits in tighter spaces, yet gives you that same sort of linear array microphone technology where you can shoot 8 different beams into different positions. The 310 is our table array microphone, where it has 4 different coverage areas, and you can steer those around on all of these microphones. And that one has a touch button as well, so if you touch the side of it, it will mute. We've got Intellimix P300. That's our hardware DSP. And that is what will aggregate all of those microphones and get them into your codec using analog or USB. Has an auto mixer built in, so it will turn up and down all the channels of the different microphones for you. So it keeps that noise floor down. And a USB is the smaller form factor where if you've got a single microphone and you just need to get it into a codec, you've got your USB connection to that computer and you're good to go with our microphones. MXN5WC is our speaker, and this one's specific for the ceiling, and that's all networked. So with that one, all of these devices get one cable to get their power from PoE, from the Netgear switch, and you can access and see those from anywhere on the network, or if you have a remote network, you can see what's going on with them. You can reboot them. Everything is very visible, as opposed to like an analog speaker where you wouldn't have no idea that it was offline or it was broken until someone complains, and it takes a while. Whereas this, if you're monitoring all of our network devices, you can get notified like, hey, one of these devices dropped offline. It's a huge advantage to networking with audio. Really keeps you up to date on what's happening with your devices. The MXA mute, hard to tell, but it's a cool little button that you can put into a table or into a podium, and it's a remote control for muting all the devices, and we've incorporated mute sync with the leading codec companies. So when you mute it either on the screen with one of our controls or a control system that's programmed to do this, everything will mute across the USB and with our devices over the network. So it's all synchronized, which is without programming, which is a huge, another time saver. And that's what Shure, has been focusing on, is just having the simplicity, but with advanced features of all of our array microphones.
Wow, that's fantastic, Paul. And let me add something. The simplicity and into an ecosystem that makes sense, that's very true. But the other thing that Shure definitely has is a very thorough, intimidating QA, SQA, insurance team, and the Shure products are really, really tested thoroughly. And they never go wrong, because nothing go wrong, because those QA engineers, they are super bad with the products. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, they're really intense. It comes from back in the war days when we had you had to have a microphone that was war ready, which means it could survive flames, it could get dropped, it could get wet. We have a intense testing lab, and even with our network audio products, you've experienced our guys. They will find everything that could happen and discover it all. Here's an example of what the actual Netgear UI shows, and it's a web-based UI. So any computer that you plug into that network, just open your browser, put in the IP address, and you will be able to access all of these features, which is great. You can see there's two profiles for Shure. We've got a converged audio where we don't split the traffic on that one. We just kind of set all the optimal settings for QoS and IMGP and all these things, basically similar to a Dante profile, which is the protocol we use for audio. And then we have the Shure split audio and control network, which is where we really opened up some doors for our customers here. As you can see on the right, it shows you how you can customize this split network thing. You can choose your ports, choose your VLAN settings, and you're good to go. And you just hit apply, and it does all the hard work for you. And you'll see that in a minute when Laurent does his demo.
Absolutely, thank you.
Here's a typical Shure room where you can see there's a conference room like this where it has video cameras. It's got microphones in the table there. Those are like a 310, which are the ones you can just touch and mute. Those go into a switch. The switch also has the DSP, which is like a P300, which is at the top there. And oftentimes we found our customers, like you said, with your new small desktop form factor, we're getting everyone wants to have everything as invisible as possible and quiet. They don't want a rack with a bunch of fans of, full rack things, making a bunch of noise, taking up space. These new, the architects are making clean designs. So a lot of these things just mount on a plate behind a TV, and it's all small. The switch, and everything hides right back there. So this has been a great combination, especially with that desktop when you have these combinations. The new M4250, the P300 are about the same size and they easily fit behind the screen. And then you just plug in the Cat5s and the power and you're pretty much good to go. So that's a very typical room here, and one of those switches will easily power all of these devices.
Absolutely, and thank you, yeah, for the plate. I would be curious to see such a plate with the P300 and the switch together. But yes, we heard you. So the desktop switch is fanless for audio, and so it's really silent, you know. And
yeah,
all
even
right,
the one that was a full rack was really quiet when it was in the standard quiet mode.
yeah.
Having it absolutely silent, the laptops in the room, all of that's going to be louder than the audio equipment, which is great. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Laurent so he can show you a typical setup like we saw there. And here's an exact list of all the devices on the switch, and hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Paul. And please don't be shy. You can interrupt me, and we are going to talk together during this demo. But yes, that's the setup. So of course, my setup in the NETGEAR lab in San Jose, California, in our headquarters, is less pretty than your nice conference room example, right? That's a lab, but still, we have that switch, and we have a collection of your products that are connected from the port 2 to the port 8, okay? And we are going to connect to that switch via a, let's say, existing, let's call it a corporate network, for instance, if you are in a conference room. And this is coming from the port 10. So we won't want to mess up with the port 10, all right? So this is our setup. And let me bring up the lab. Of course, I disconnected. So bear with me. We are reconnecting to this lab, but that should come. You know, this is always during that time, during a live presentation, that you say, "Oh my God, it's not going to come up." All right. So let me start with a camera. So I did not find a camera in Paul's portfolio at Shure yet. So I'm using another type of camera that's NDI, and but that's not on this switch, okay? It's coming from the rest of the network. And this is our setup. So we use another switch just to elevate a little bit our switch, which is the top switch. Everything is connected right now, but factory default, okay? No lie, it's really much a default switch out of the box. I just took care of the firmware so that we, of course, run the latest and greatest firmware revision on that switch. And we have a collection of Shure devices, starting with the P300s from port 2 to port 9, I said. Yeah, no, sorry, to port 7. All right, so let's connect to our switchers. The 4250 switch that we have, it's connected to a network where there is a DHCP server. So we just get an IP address from that DHCP server. It's happened to be 200.250. And here is the introduction page for the AV user interface. Please, when you log in, don't use the right-hand side, IT GUI. We at NETGEAR still love it, okay, because it's where all those complex features are, but you have hundreds, if not thousands of different pages in three-dimensional menus. It's cumbersome. So the AV user interface is really designed for you. We try to give you the strict minimum information so that you can get it run in your conference room right away. So on the welcome page, because we got that 200.250 IP address, we are aware, but just saying, if you want to, you know, set up the management IP address, which is for now the management VLAN 1 on that switch, you can do it here and go static instead. All right. So this switch has the blue color because those devices are all connected. And we are not going to touch to the port 10 because that's how we remotely connect into that switch. All right. So let me show you a neighbor page, because we've seen on the camera that all these Shure devices were connected. And yes, we do see the mute button, the MXA 920, the 310, the P300s, and the 710, all connected. And because they have several MAC addresses, you have several entries into that MAC table. A great thing also that I wanted to show you quickly before we start, if you hover above the ports on the welcome overview page, you do get information, because the Shure devices, they send LLDP, precious information, to the Netgear switcher. Then it means that you can have right away the host name. If you did not modify, we did not modify anything, and MAC and IP and wattage, PUE consumption, and all this right away. Okay. So the first thing we want to do today during that demo is to experiment with the first profile, which is the hybrid converged profile. Okay, so how does it work? Well, we do have those devices that are connected. We do have our VLAN 1, okay? And all ports, by default, out of the box, all ports belong to the VLAN 1 with the black color, as you can see, right? So we are not going to create any new VLAN. We want to get the switch configured for the Shure audio and the Shure control at the same time, in the same broadcast domain, in the same VLAN 1. For this, we are just going to edit the VLAN 1. Oh, I do have a little latency. Give me a second. All right, edit. And we are just going to alter this configuration. The profile template that you see, which is data out of the box, let's scroll down and find the Shure Converged audio and control network. Instantly, the Shure color, which is green, will be defined for that VLAN 1, and we don't want to touch here anything, because our switch is already a DHCP client. There's a DHCP server on the network. We got an IP address. All the devices will get an IP address out of it. No need to touch. And we just apply. By doing that, you have all the Shure configuration, the perfect configuration approved by Shure for the Shure devices, that is injected into the switch, so that your ports, they do the right things for DSCP, quality of service, Bonjour, MDNS, discovery, multicast, IGMP, fast queries, everything, okay? So job complete, because now you have all your ports that still are in the VLAN 1, but all ports are capable of doing the Shure audio and control at the same time, okay? So, Paul, this is what we have for now. If we get a look into the camera, well, no change, right? Because the devices did not reboot, because after all, it's just a software configuration that happened on the switch. If we go to the Shure discovery, the Shure web device discovery, if I refresh it, I can see that my devices, the Shure devices, got their IP address. Everything is okay, all good. All right, so that's the first use case. But now let me explain something. I'm gonna put that down and just stay here for a minute. The problem with the such an installation with all devices on the VLAN 1 control and audio is good for a typical standalone installation. For instance, you're in a boardroom, there's no connection to the rest of the network, maybe. It's possible after all. And then this is fine. But if you are really coming to a enterprise type of customer, big headquarters like the Netgear headquarters with 20 or 30 conference rooms, you may not want to do that, because having a global broadcast domain, which is the customer enterprise IT network domain, actually the same VLAN for all the audio and all the show control, might not be best practice. So for this reason, the best practice always been to separate the broadcast domain so that the audio is in a protected, closed broadcast domain just for Dante audio. And also the control might be, separate so that it can go to the customer network, but only that the control goes to the IT network because it belongs to the IT managers so that they can monitor and configure and remotely control. So for this, we need to change the configuration. And as Paul said, of course, we could do some more complex VLAN techniques and routing so that we could do the inter-VLAN routing to get the control into the Shure control into that green VLAN. But Shure had a fantastic idea, and let me demo it to you. So we are going to undo what we did. Let's edit the VLAN 1 back and change the profile template to the very dumb native data profile. Okay. Oh, I forgot to change the color. Pardon me. I need to redo it real quick. That's the demo effect. You know, Paul? You forget things. All right. So let's. I'm not an artist, so I don't know the code for the black color, but that's going to be good enough. All right. So we are reverting the VLAN 1 to what it is, a data profile, all black color, right? And now we want to use the fantastic new Shure split audio and control network profile. So we want to connect the Shure devices, but we are requiring the separation, really physical separation of Dante audio, Shure audio, into the Shure audio VLAN, and another VLAN for control. And this other VLAN for the control, we can give it to the rest of the corporate network for control management. All right. So we are going to select this profile and see. First, we should define the ports. Second, we should define the VLAN IDs, and I promise that's going to be it. As simple as that. So let's start with the ports. By default, that Shure profile is selecting all the ports that seem free. So all the ports in the VLAN 1. When you see that little S logo, it means that this is a port that is selected to connect a Shure device. All right. If we want to change that, we just click the ports, and then we can either remove entirely that port from any of those two VLANs, which we don't want to do, or you can actually change the configuration of the port so that this port will only be a control port in the control VLAN, or only be a audio port in the audio VLAN, but in access mode, okay? Not tagged, just so that you can give it, untagged to the rest of the network. You may want to have some tagging just for the control or just for the audio if you know that the other peer, the IT network switch, expect to see this VLAN with the VLAN tag, or you want to carry both because you can decide that this port will be a trunk for both control and audio. Okay, so this is a very intuitive but comprehensive possible configuration. And of course, if you have two Netgear AV switchers, connecting them together, you know that the auto trunk will kick off and carry both VLANs in between the switches just right, okay, automatically. But here you have control for, some third-party switches, especially for your customer, Paul, a corporate environment with an IT network, all right? So in my case, I remember I told you, we don't want to attach to the port 10. That's our corporate network on this one. So I don't want to send the audio. I want to keep this port as a control port because I need that port to stay on the control VLAN, on the management VLAN 1, okay? But now, because we've done that, we could say that the last fiber ports, we are going to transform that port so that we just send the Dante, a Shure audio VLAN on that port. All right, enough said. So control VLAN 1, audio VLAN 20, all other ports are expecting Shure devices, okay? On the control VLAN 1, we are already DHCP client. We are not going to touch it. I want to stay like that on the corporate IT network. I got an address already. But for the audio VLAN 20, audio VLAN, we are going to set it up real quick. We are going to assign a IP interface to that VLAN 20 on that very switch. Let's use a 192.168.20 because that's the VLAN 20 1. Okay, that's my IP address for the VLAN 20 on that switch. We call it a routing IP interface with the subnet mask. And yes, why not, Paul? We are going to use that switch and we want to fire up a DHCP server for the Shure devices. And we are going to start at 192.168.21. Actually, it's going to start at 22, right? And up to the 254. If you have some statics and all that, you can, reserve some range for the statics and start later. But let's do that this way. We don't intend to provide any internet connectivity to the Shure devices in this installation, so we are not going to have DNS server. So recap. We stay with the DHCP client in the VLAN 1, which is the control VLAN in this installation, and the VLAN 20 for audio. We assign a VLAN ID, which is VLAN 20, and we assign a 192.168.21 IP interface to that VLAN on that switch. And we use it to be a router for the Shure devices so that the DHCP server will assign DHCP addresses to the Shure devices. We apply, yes, without DNS, we won't have much internet. We know, all right. So during that time, this is a massive reconfiguration of the switch. So let's immediately go to the camera. We call it the onboarding, okay? So what the switch is doing, really, the switch is listening to the Shure devices. And each individual Shure device is going to tell the switch which MAC address is the control traffic and which other MAC address is the audio traffic. And the switch will do all that magic configuration to build MAC-based VLAN separation in order to move those packets in different VLANs. And see, now the Shure devices, they are rebooting. Why? Because remember, they got already an IP address from VLAN 1. Now we want to cut the network in two, right? And we want the audio leg of each device, the audio, Shure audio MAC address on each device to get another IP address in another VLAN. So for that, the onboarding process is rebooting. So I talk too much. I know, I'm a French guy, but it took like 2 minutes, right, Paul? This is your measurement as well, the onboarding?
Yeah, it's about a minute or so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, even faster than 1 minute. All right, got you. So now all the devices are back up, so they have rebooted. Let's take a look at the Shure Web Discovery. So let's refresh it. Well, not yet, okay? Not yet. We do not see the new IP addresses. Oh, no, actually, my bad, Paul. That's the demo effect. I don't expect to see any different IP addresses because that's the control IP address of the Shure devices. So this stays in the VLAN 1 with the previously attributed IP addresses for the control. So there's no change. So now we need to see what's going on the switch, right? So on the switch, if I maybe scroll up, go to the overview, I see now a green S logo. I love that logo. It's, for me, of course, it is Shure, but it's also a little bit like Superman, you know, because when you have the green S logo, it means that your Shure device has been onboarded, done, okay? So remember, we said that we wanted a DHCP server, right? 192.168.21. This is my interface, so I do expect my Shure devices to get the 22, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So let's use quickly a trick to test, right? We are going to go to the troubleshoot, and let's ping the 192.168.22, which is the first Shure device that would have been, onboarded with the a new IP address. Ta-ta-ta. And we have received 3 packets, which is a good news. Let's go to the next one to see the 192.168.23. Well, it is also received 0 packet loss. It is a little fastidious, right, Paul? So maybe we should fire up the terminal on the AV UI. Under this diagnostic, you have a terminal. So for those of us, the IT boys who like the CLI, it's a telnet into the switch. And this is actually pretty cool because you can do faster pings. So let's ping the 192.168.23. It's actually working. All right. 24. I could actually have several sessions, and of course, full disclosure, because it's a demo, we may have problems and all that. So I'm fully equipped. I also have a serial connection to the switch, but I'm not using it. All right. But we could go faster with the ping. Let's ping the number 6, and then we will have the number 7. Well, Paul, I think it is sounding just about right, because we see that all our devices are responding to the ping. So the switch is pinging the Shure devices, and they all respond on their audio IP. So back to the switch now. On this side, if I go back up to the configure mode and to my neighbor. So, Paul, this is the fatidic moment, all right? Because we want to see it. So what are we going to see? Well, no bad demo effect today. Let's review this, all right? The first device is the mute button. So this mute button is not meant to do any audio distribution, send or receive. It's just a control unit. So it's pretty normal that it still shows up in the VLAN 1, and the IP is the same. But look at this MXA 920. The MXA 920 is the big, brand new, fantastic selling microphone array here. So this one, the 920 on the VLAN 1 with that specific MAC address is still in the control VLAN, but now this one was, well, it's the best one, so he was first in the competition to get an IP address. He was the fastest one. He shows up now in the VLAN 20, and he got the 192.168.22. And now we can review all of the devices, the 310 VLAN 1, the 310 Shure Control, Shure Audio Dante, VLAN 20 with the 192.168.23. So the actual IP address attribution, if we actually, we can realize that it's going incremental with the port numbers, and that's normal because during the reboot, the switch started with the port 1 and rebooted the first ports, right? And then the switch rebooted the port 2. So this is incremental because the rebooting was incremental. But this is all working. So Paul, are you happy to see it?
I am. And another cool fact here is if you don't have Shure Web Discovery app, an installed application that only works on Windows, within this web UI, you've got the IP address and we've made it hot linkable. So if you were to click on that 920 control IP address, it will actually open up the web UI for this microphone. So right
Oh,
there, you're getting straight into a Shure microphone. And that gives you the capability to configure the microphone, which is
oh, but I clicked on the VLAN 20 audio. I am not in this VLAN. I'm on the port 10, which is the control port. Okay, so I need to select instead the IP address of the control leg of that Shure device. Wow. I should continue without password maybe, but yeah, it's working.
Yep, and it takes you right to the UI. So that's a
Wow,
really quick way to get to configuration, you know. So you
that's nice.
configure your network would be like the way you'd set this up, right? So that workflow right there, you've already gotten to your microphone and you can point it wherever you need it and do a test call. So it's a very slick thing. Our support guys are really happy to see these IP addresses because it helps them troubleshoot very quickly. Typical switch, you know, you would have to figure out what the IP address of a specific device was. And since we have the LLDP here with NETGEAR, it tells you very clearly what's what. And that really helps our guys troubleshoot when you have a NETGEAR switch.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, well, actually, we can say it worked. Okay, we didn't have any trouble on this one, but let me get back to the profile for a moment because I want to recap and I want everyone, and please use the chat box or the question box because that's the right time. We're done. So we are going to spend the rest of the time answering your questions now. But remember, we have set up this switch to send the control, only the control, untagged as a control port, okay? Untagged to the rest of the network where I am. So if I'm the customer, I just get this uplink from each conference room. If you have many conference rooms to do, you will send the control to the corporate network. The corporate network will most likely provide you with a control VLAN, whatever. You don't have to take care because your control traffic is untagged, so the customer IT network can take it the way he wants. And if you do have some daisy chain or a separate Dante network that is comprised of other switchers and maybe some other devices, then you can also uplink just the audio. And this way, it's very easy. As you can see, there is absolutely no complex inter-VLAN routing techniques with static routes and all this to do. Thanks to this brilliant idea from Shure, the installation and the setup is made totally automatic. You can control you can have your control the way you want, and you can have your Dante audio the way you want, and you can uplink this the way you want very easily. So thank you, Paul.
One other really cool feature there is we made it compatible with third-party devices as well. So if you've got another audio device on that same network that's getting power from there, you can tell it, like, it's probably going to have a control port or an audio port. You can actually forward that port number 1, say, to the control. Maybe port number 9 could be an audio port. So you can also plug in different devices and it'll get VLAN as well, which is really cool. Because we know our microphones get used with a lot of different companies' DSPs or connectors. So that's a feature we built in to make it compatible with third party as well.
Absolutely. And I do know that the Shure specialists, the installers, the technicians, they also like to use those applications like the Shure Discovery, but you also have the Designer, you have plenty of nice apps. And of course, you want to be in the control segment of the network for that, right? So it is also made very easy because if I take this audio port and I want to convert it to a control port, I just, it's one click and you can allocate the ports the way you want. All right. But nevertheless, all this has the green color because this is a Shure switch with a certified, approved, and really well tested Shure profile that we call the Shure profile. So thank you. I hope it was informative for you. It's all live. All the 42 NETGEAR M4250 switches have the Shure profile. You can use the Engage controller to discover your switches, to update automatically your switches from the NETGEAR servers so that you don't have to manipulate those firmware files. Update your NETGEAR switches to the latest, and you'll have those Shure profiles live. All right, so maybe Randy, you want to chime in? Is there any relevant question?
No, most of it responded. I mean, most of them
Okay.
are AV, questions about interface or IGMP plus. But yeah, our SEs responded to all of them. So a copy of this video will be sent out to all the people who registered.
All right, thank you. So see, Paul, we are going to be on YouTube NETGEAR channels forever. And we'll make sure that this recording can be sent to the Shure organization as well. Of course.
Be
All
sure
right.
to smash that like button, as the kids say, and subscribe.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're perfect timing, I guess. Thank you for your attention. Of course, as usual, reach out to us, to NETGEAR, to Shure by any means. I've put the shure.com/microflex URL, but I'm sure that you have your ways into the Shure organization. On the NETGEAR side, it's very simple. One email address, proavdesign@netgear.com. proavdesign@netgear.com will get you covered. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.